From food forests to solar panels, veggie gardens to livestock, let's talk about our plans for 2023. So we recently did a whirlwind tour of a video around the land and the outbuildings to show you what we're working with here and what we've been up to so far. So I thought today we could chat through our plans for the next year and beyond. So let's head down to the stables and we'll start there. Okay, so this is a stall in my stables. As I say, we've got stables on this property, but we have no horses and I have no immediate plans for horses. So at the moment, this is really handy storage. I've commandeered this stall at the end with the door out to the garden to work as my potting shed and centre of operations for the garden. I'm a bit embarrassed by it at the moment because it is a mess, but I would like to get it sorted in the relatively near future because I'm going to be spending a lot of time out here. So this is primarily going to be a functional space. I don't need it to be beautiful, but I wouldn't say no to a few home comforts in here. As I say, I'm going to spend a lot of time in here, so you know, if I could bring something a little bit nice out here, I wouldn't say no to that. I'm rather partial to a bit of music, so potentially some way to play music. And you may notice the dogs follow me around a fair amount out here, so somewhere for them to be a bit more comfy would be nice. They are not farm dogs, they are pampered pooches. I think generally I just want to get it a bit more organised in here, other than the one unit of drawers and the plastic chest thingy, then everything is just kind of dumped in here. So if I can get it a bit more organised, make sure I know exactly what I've got before spring comes, then I think that'll just make my whole life a lot easier. So this is hopefully within the next couple of weeks I'll get around to sorting all of this out completely, and then I won't have to worry about it again for the rest of the summer. Okay, let's head out to the veggie fields and I'll chat loosely through my plans out there. Okay, slight break, it's the next day. Wind and the camera and microphone situation didn't get along, so we're going to try again today. So here we are in the gardens. This is where most of my time is going to be spent this spring and summer. See, you know, this is why we moved here. This is what it's all about for me. Growing as much food as I possibly can in this space. You might be able to see I have made a start putting beds in. I've been doing it throughout the winter, covering over the grass, putting in new no-dig beds so that they're ready to go come spring. We have also got the compost going. That was one of the first things we did when we moved in, was start our composting. I did buy a crate load of compost bags when we first moved in so I could get started with the garlic and putting the beds in and things like that. But my hope is that we won't have to buy any more and we can make the rest of our compost from our garden waste here on the land. So my plan is to get as many in-ground beds on the go as I possibly can this year. I would love to have, you know, some nice raised beds, a polytunnel, a greenhouse out here. They're definitely in the long-term plans, but not for this year. Mostly because those things are expensive and they take a lot of time, and this is our first year here. I really want to get going with the food production and I can't afford to go spending thousands because I just bought a small holding. Like when we do get around to putting a polytunnel in, it's going to be quite an investment, because if I'm going to do it I figure it should probably be of a reasonable size. Also, one of my biggest challenges here as a gardener is that it gets a lot of wind, and there's not a lot that I can do about that. So if I'm going to put something like a polytunnel up here, it can't be flimsy. It's going to have to be something fairly robust. So I don't want to, I feel like if I skimp out on the polytunnel when the time comes to put it in, then it might not last very long, which would be very sad. You may already know that I am planning to put a food forest or agroforest in another part of the land. So here I'm going to be mostly focusing on annual things, and the beauty of that is that I don't have to worry about the perfect place for everything. I'm not making the plans for where I want my beds to be forever, because ultimately this is my first year growing here. I don't know where the best space for everything is going to be, and I want to just sort of be open-minded and learn while growing as much food as I can. So I don't want to waste this opportunity. I will be observant, and I'm not going to take anything too personally if it doesn't work out. So the beauty of having a separate place for my perennials and the things I want to, really consider where the best spot is for them and spend a lot of time in the planning, I've got space for that. This space is for my annual things. Obviously, I'm going to use my best judgment in where to put things, but these things don't have to be in the best place forever. This is just for us to get food this year, and I can make all the changes I want to make in future years after we learn from this season. So far the only thing planted out in this field is garlic. They went in November of last year. I am just about to starting seeds. I'm filming this mid-February, but it's going to be a little while yet until I'm actually planting stuff out here. So I'm still preparing beds. So the next few weeks I'm just going to carry on putting in as many beds as I possibly can, so that once I get all swept up into seed starting, this space is just ready to go for when stuff is ready to go out. I've also got a few areas that I've just covered in black plastic that was just laying around the land when we got here, so I thought I'd put it to good use. It's been out there for probably 6 weeks now, just covering up that grass, just to try and kill off a bit of grass in some bigger patches to grow things I want to grow in a area. I'm thinking potatoes, corn, squashes and things like that. I will do a video with all of my seeds and what I'm actually planning to grow in here, vegetable, herb and flower wise, very soon. But let's move down to the next field and we'll chat about what's going in there. Okay, this field is where our solar panels are going to go. I've not spoken a lot about this so far because we didn't have planning permission, and don't bait the planning permission gods, but that's all come through now, which is great. So along this bank here behind me is where our solar panels are going to go. That way is south, so they will be south facing and slightly raised up on this bank here. So that's very exciting. That's all ready to go. We are just waiting for the stock to come in, and that's due in June. So that should be a big project that will be getting done this summer. Otherwise, this field doesn't have a lot of plants. So I figure this space can either be sort of overflow from the veggie fields if I need any more space. I'm not expecting to this year, but it's nice to know that there's a bit of extra space if I want it for something. I also would quite like to do some willow and some hazel areas for coppicing, all of my garden supports and things like that. So this might be a nice area to do that in, considering I'd have to sort of plant and leave them alone for a while. This is also the space that if we do ever decide to get livestock, this would be the field that we would use for that. But my consideration with that, while I do have a bit of a fantasy of putting some goats in here to just be pets, but also to help us out with the weeds and the brambles and the hedgerows. But realistically, the fencing is not up to scratch out here, so there would be a lot of work to do before we could feasibly put anything in here livestock wise, especially goats. So alongside these solar panels, we're also having power wall put in up at the house, so that these solar panels will feed into that battery, and that way we can have sort of consistent power up at the house. We do work from home, so we do need to know that we can stay online as we need to. I'll go into the details more as we actually get on with this project, but just to give you an idea, that is the plan. Once this system is in, we should get the vast majority of the electricity that we use in the summer months provided for by our solar system. We'll have to wait and see how it performs in the winter. Okay, so this field here is what is going to become, over the years and decades, my food forest. I'm very excited about this, but inevitably this is going to progress a lot slower than the veggie fields, but that's totally fine. This is going to be one of those where I spend a lot of time in the early days thinking about it and planning the best way to do things, and if that means that it takes a little while to get going, well, that's inevitable anyway, because we're starting with sort of 1 and 2 year old fruit trees. So I would rather progress this a little bit slower, but keep thinking about the best way, because this is a lot harder to change than, say, in-ground veggie beds. This is also where the chickens are going to live. You can see the shell of the run behind us. That is in progress. We're building that as and when we get time, but I am expecting that to be finished fairly soon, and then hopefully chickens will be moving in. So that is something that should happen all within the next couple of months. I cannot wait to have fresh eggs from my own chickens. How cool is that? So I have also planted a number of trees in here. I've already said I'm going to do a proper tour of this food forest area. But for now, we've got sort of 5 or 6 fruit trees in here. We've got some hazels, some crab apples, some elder bushes, some currant bushes and things like that. So it's all happening in here. But at the moment, you know, it's February, so they all just look like twigs. But it's happening. So this space is going to change massively over the next few years. At the moment it just looks like a field, which is inevitable, but I have lots of plans. There's lots of behind the scenes thinking about this space. Else it's just going to take a while to catch up with the image that's in my brain. What I'm really going to try to hold on to with this space is that this isn't a space that I'm using for maximum efficiency. You know, in the vegetable garden, I am growing as much as I can. I'm going to think about companion planting. It's going to be on purpose. I am growing as much food as I can. This space is not necessarily that. You know, while this is going to be a productive space, this is also a space that I really, really do want to enjoy. So alongside the food producing trees and plants, and you know, I want to have spaces to come out here and enjoy. There will be, you know, there'll be seating areas, there'll be wildlife ponds. This is going to be a bit of our land that I want to be happy to come out and walk with the dogs every day. That's the image that I've got in my head. So it's not all about peak efficiency for food out here. So it's not just fruit that's going to be going in here. I'm also going to put most of my other perennial food plants in here, you know, perennial veg, and obviously things that aren't edible but that contribute to the food forest in another way. So it could be, you know, a number of years before I get anything out of this space, and I'm okay with that. I think you just have to have that, as long as you have that expectation going in to starting a food forest, then that's okay. I think, you know, it'd be difficult if you're planting all these trees and putting all this work in only for it to take years for you to get anything out of it. As long as you know that going in, we can just make peace with it. I've just seen the lambs next door. So while I am not expecting to be getting food out of this space for the next couple of years, after that I'm expecting this to become a much more productive space. So this is a much more long-term project, and I'm very excited to see where we go with it. So while I do want this space to be eventually productive, I also want it to be a place that we can enjoy with our family and with our visitors who come here. So that's my plans. As we head back up towards the house, this field here is going to be a sort of continuation of the food forest area, but it's also kind of the route from the house down to that main area. So I kind of want to make it part of the walk, if you will, around the food forest. So some fruit trees have already gone in along here. My raspberry canes have already gone in along here. There's more to come in here. This patch does catch the wind a bit more than the field down the bottom, so I'm going to have to be a bit careful with what comes up, what I plant up here. That field down the bottom is a bit lower, it's a bit more protected, so that's all in my brain for when I'm planning out the future of this food forest. So this area, as you come back up towards the house and to the entrance to the property, the gates are right behind where you are now, it's all just a bit tired. I don't really know what to do here because we're on like gravelled hard standing for most of it, so it can't really be planted. But I don't love how it is at the moment. We've got the incinerator here, which was here when we moved in, so we're going to find a new place for that. and then just try to make this area look a little bit more intentional. I'm not sure what that means yet. It may get put on the back burner because it's not urgent, but it's just something that I'm thinking about, how best to use this area here. I think on the whole it's gonna stay grassy area because, as I say, it's gravel underneath. It would be a lot of work to actually make this an area that we can plant properly, but the grass is surviving on top of it okay. So it may just be grass and then maybe some pots and maybe seating area and things like that. As I say, it's visible from the road. So I'd like to find a way to make this space useful. I'm just not quite sure how to do it yet. Okay, so I hope that gives you a good idea of the things we're going to be getting up to over the next 6 months or so here. Nothing is really set in stone yet. That's just what we're working with. So that gives you a good idea as to what we're going to be showing you and what we're going to be talking about. If you do want to follow our progress, then please do subscribe or head over to the channel where I'm going to put more videos about more specific plans for each of the areas, and I'll just keep you up to date with how we're getting on. Thanks guys.